Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. So today there's been a major update in the story and the timeline of Antifa. So many of you know I've been following this story for a very long time. I had inside information on Antifa. I was connected to some people that had joined Antifa. I was almost they tried to recruit me to join them, and we had a major falling out. Right? Many of you know I was targeted by them, and that they often target people who do what I do. I would argue that it was an arm of Antifa. If you throw the conspiracy theories out, it was an arm of Antifa that targeted Charlie Kirk, and Andy Ngo, who is probably their chief opponent and number one target, has been beaten up so many times by them that he has a brain bleed, had a brain bleed, and caused some neurological damage. And so these people aren't something you play with, right? But some major things have happened. President Trump has recently declared some foreign forms of Antifa as international terrorist groups. We'll get into what that means, what the effect it will have on Antifa, and how that might affect everything that's going on in our country, and even potentially trigger some civil war activities or some insurrection or revolutionary activities here in the United States. But before I get into that, I want to thank all of you who support this channel. This channel is funded specifically and exclusively by viewers just like you. So your kind donations keep the lights on here in the cabin, keeps these videos coming your way, and I very much need your financial support to buy me the time to do the research on this and other topics, and to keep these videos coming out on a regular basis. So if you'd like to become a financial contributor, excuse me, you'll find links in the description below to my Cash App, to my PayPal, and to my post office box. So what's happened? What has changed? So it was announced today by the Secretary of State, and a publication was put out, a press release stating that certain entities that are associated with Antifa entities in other countries like Greece and Germany, have been declared a international terrorist organization. And so what does that do? What's the meaning of it? Is it just symbolic? Not really. It's not symbolic at all. It's a very powerful move. This allows our federal government and our law enforcement to utilize everything at their disposal to go after these groups, go after their money, potentially jail them, and to spy on them in ways they can't spy on American citizens. And this would open up a lot of powerful tools to go after these international Antifa organizations. Now, how does that affect our local Antifa, your Rose City Antifa in Portland, for instance, the ones that Andy Ngo and I have come in contact with and dealt with in the past? Well, for one thing, they are tied together. The argument coming from the left is gaslighting on the highest level. They're telling you Antifa doesn't exist. If anything, it's an ideology. It's not an organization. Well, that's exactly what the mafia used to say. If you go back in time to the time of the Kennedy administration, when the government targeted the mafia would go on record and saying, "There's no such thing as the mafia. There's no such thing as La Costa Rosa. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But yeah, this idea that there's organized crime, that we're just businessmen, we're just importer exporters. There's no such thing as the mafia. That level of gaslighting has been occurring for some time concerning these Antifa organizations. And I can tell you for a fact from personal experience, they absolutely do exist. They are organized. And here's the kicker. They are, in fact, connected to these foreign organizations that have just been labeled international terrorist groups. So what happens then to the local groups that have connections to them? They are instantly seen not as American groups or American terrorists or domestic terrorists. They're seen as international terrorists, local arms of an international terror group. So outfits like Rose City Antifa and other organizations who are headquartered in other major cities around the country, any connection that they have with them financially, for instance, So if they received any money, any goods, any weapons, any intel, any communication whatsoever, any link at all that can connect these local Antifa groups to these other international Antifa groups, then that brings the full power of the federal government against them. This would allow them to obtain not just arrest warrants but FISA warrants. They can get the right to spy on you and spy on these Antifa groups if they can find any connection whatsoever. And trust me, there's plenty of connections between local Antifa and these international groups to make this happen. This is a power move by the Trump administration. This is a declaration of war against all Antifa, but both foreign and domestic. And they are linked, and proving the link will be super easy. The other thing is this analyze some of the behavior of these NGOs. And of course, if you know the channel, you know I've been a vocal opponent to people like George Soros, whose different NGO companies fund these demonstrations, and they put money in the pocket of Antifa. If they are also connected to the international versions of Antifa, then they themselves, the NGOs, and even potentially George Soros, could come under surveillance, could have their records subpoenaed, and could potentially be arrested as foreign terrorists. And so the funding of Antifa now is going to be linking, potentially could link NGOs, right, like Act Blue and some other organizations like that who fund these protests, who drop off pallets of bricks, right, who bring piles of rocks to these things and provide material support and financial support to these groups. That those organizations now could be lumped in with these international Antifa organizations that have been declared terrorist groups, and they themselves would be treated as though they are part of Antifa in other countries, whether they are technically joining them or just working alongside them. Any connection at all to these groups can now put you in the same category as them. It really is a way to unleash the full power of the federal government on not just international versions of Antifa, but all Antifa organizations in our country who can link themselves at all in any way. If they've ever publicly shown support, if there's communication back and forth. Let's say they get a warrant on these international terrorist organizations, which are being issued right now, I'm sure, in secret, and they find any communication between Rose City Antifa or the John Brown Gun Club, any of those kind of militant organizations in our country. If they can link those in any way, any communication, any financial, any finances flowing back and forth, any instructions, even any verbal support, it would be easy then to go to a FISA court and get some pretty strong warrants to tap everything, to put bugs everywhere, to put people and infiltrate people into these organizations without any of their knowledge or even their lawyers or anyone knowing about it. So this is a power move. This could mark the end of Antifa. Now, having said that, what effect would that have on the climate of what's going on here in this country? If you watch the channel, you know that I'm a bit critical about being heavy-handed. Yes, we have to do things to combat this kind of terror and mayhem that's being unleashed in our country and around the world. However, the more power you use, the more you make them a martyr, the more you solidify the attitudes and opinions of the peripheral people around Antifa. If you went after Antifa, you would think that that would have a chilling effect, but it actually might empower people to join them, to get involved in these organizations, to volunteer, to be sympathetic, right? And so this could backfire if it's handled too strongly. So really, when you're dealing with anything like this in the government, if you're dealing with a large movement of people or an ideology, and you go over the top and you throw the book at them too much, right? You're too heavy-handed. A few people get killed in some raids, right? Some things blow up in your face, and it could cause a rise in sympathy for these organizations. So that's the only caveat that I have to this. That's the only warning that I bring as somebody who knows quite a lot. I mean, I don't know what Andy knows, but I'm right up there with him to some degree in intimate knowledge. I mean, we both lived in the Portland area. He was born and raised there. I spent my childhood there and then came back later in life and spent many years there. in my van down by the river, right? Y'all remember. And so, um, you know, we kind of know what's going on. We've been blowing the whistle. Many of us have been blowing the whistle on these terror organizations who really have in their head an idea of a communist purge in this country, a violent revolution to take over this country and turn it into some kind of communist utopia. And the Antifa groups in Europe, in Germany especially, can trace their roots all the way back to before World War II, when communism infiltrated into Germany and organized the first anti-fascist Antifa group to combat the rise of Hitler. And at one point, we were in league with these people when we were fighting Hitler. But what ended up happening is it got hijacked by idealists. It got hijacked, and the communist ideology took root and spread throughout the world. And these people that call themselves Antifa here, they're communists. They have a communist agenda, and they very much intend to someday overthrow our government, burn our constitution, do away with capitalism, destroy the church and any Christians who oppose them, and in a mass purge, not unlike the movie, they intend to kill a lot of people, and they're pretty open about it. And so if this designation of international groups as international terrorist groups can be linked in any way to these local groups, they're going to have a lot of power to go in and find those emails where they're plotting this stuff, find those text messages. And these guys that are doing this aren't really smart enough right now to necessarily use burner phones and anonymous accounts and ways of covering their tracks. They're not as good at that as, say, maybe the mafia or other organizations that don't exist, right? But this is going to unleash a lot of investigatory power and spying power into the hands of our federal law enforcement agencies. And this could cause, I predict there will be raids on Antifa. If I was somebody that was involved in Rose City Antifa in Portland, I'd be actually considering getting out and cutting all ties and erasing my tracks, right? Because they're coming for you. That's what this is. This is strong action, but it could backfire if it's handled in a too heavy-handed way. All it takes is one good shootout. All it takes is some resistance and some killings to really paint them in a different light to people on the far left, and they might get material support from other Americans, right? So you have to be careful. At the same time, we can't let them continue to do what they're doing in our country. They want to destroy this nation, and they're not really hiding the fact, right? It's part of who they are. They're not trying to reform our government. They're trying to destroy our government, our constitution, the whole concept of the free market system and capitalism, and replace it with the communist utopia. And they don't care how many millions of people have to die in the transition. So this is actually a good thing. Tell me what you think in the comments section. Are they actually going to do anything about these groups? Is this a major step? Does this mean something to you? What have you heard? Any information would be great. You can leave your comments in the comments section. Drop me an email if you want a private discussion. And don't forget to support the channel, because it's funded by viewers like you, and that keeps these videos coming your way. We'll see you next time from my cabin down by the creek.